All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Transfer Your Skills, which is part of our Get That Job webinar series here at the Champaign Public Library. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian here at the library, so thank you all for joining us. So for the latest library news and updates, please visit our website, champaign.org, or you can, of course, follow us on social media if that's an option for you. You can email us at librarian@champaign.org, or you could chat with us just by visiting the homepage of our website. The library is open and we are still offering our curbside services. So again, please visit our website for more information, or you could give us a call, of course. Moving on to a couple of Zoom features available to you that might help during this webinar. There are some buttons or icons at the bottom of your Zoom screen, depending on your device. On the far left, you have the option that controls your sound or your speaker. Moving to the right and within the center of the window includes a chat and raised hand option. You can use these options to ask us any questions or share any comments. I believe our presenter will pause for any questions, but it might be helpful to wait until the end because he usually answers them throughout the presentation. We invite you to type your question into the chat or raise your hand, and then we could unmute you if you'd prefer to speak and ask your question. I would like to remind you that all of our webinars are recorded, so please be mindful when you share those questions and comments. And then finally, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Kevin Martlage of Nextier Advisors. We invite you to read his entire bio on our website, but Kevin has previously been a guest of the library in previous workshops, and we always appreciate him sharing his experience and insights when it comes to items like professional development and overall career assistance and guidance. So I'm so happy he's joined us again today. So with that, Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, great. Thank you, Jordan. It's a pleasure always to be with you and with everybody here on the call. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you as we go through here. So as she noted, if you have questions throughout the call, please, or the webinar, please feel free to let me know, and I could stop and answer those as we go through that. So I'm having a little trouble sharing here. Hold on just a second, and I will get my screen shared properly here. Oh, there it is. I just picked the wrong one. Sorry about that. All right. So what we're going to be talking about today is continuing on kind of our discussion from some other webinars that we've done about intentional career path development. And specifically today, we're going to be talking about how to identify and use your transferable skills in developing that career path and doing some different things. So as we go through here, again, if you have questions, please let me know. So a little introduction about kind of what I do, just to give you some context behind maybe the approach that we're taking in some of this career path development is my company really focuses on helping people kind of improve their own self-awareness and identifying kind of your personal interests and styles and using that kind of newfound awareness of those things on how you can identify and develop a rewarding career, both opportunity-wise and work activities and leadership enhancement and all those kind of things. So the company really focuses on working with you individually and helping you to understand your personal styles and interests and how you can then use those to better interact with people and develop that career. So when you talk about intentional career development, I feel strongly that you need to kind of understand you before becoming truly intentional about your career. And there's a lot of different things that we've talked about in some of the other webinars, but just to kind of recap, it starts by understanding kind of what I call the 4 career W's. And, being able to, whether you're looking for that new job, making a change within your current career, or just starting out, whatever it may be, I always encourage people to ask themselves and be able to answer, who are you? Be able to talk about what's important to you in both a career and personal, and how you can, what those really mean to you. The second one in that 4 career W's is, what do you value? So what is it about you that you value in not only being able to use, your abilities and things towards that job, but what do you value in that job, and work-life balance and all those kind of things, and be able to articulate those things. What do you like to do? So a very simple question is, as you're looking for that job, ideally you're looking for that career, that job that has some of those personal interests involved with it, that's going to keep you engaged and motivated as you continue through that career path. So, being able to ask yourself, what do I like to do, and how do I translate that into a potential job or occupation? And then the last of the 4 W's is, which environment allows you to be the most productive? So really being able to take a look at, how do I like to learn? What kind of team environment do I like to be in? Do I like that opportunity to both work by myself or also with the team, or do I really just thrive when it's in that full collaborative team environment? So those are kind of the 4 career W's that we work through, and we've talked about in some of the other webinars that we've done. We're going to talk about those again today. But most importantly today, we're going to be focusing on what are some of my best skills. And so being able to help you go through a couple processes to identify what those skills are, and then how you can use that newfound knowledge to develop your resume, develop your cover letter, prepare for interview questions, look for those jobs that align with those skills, and also help you align a career with those other 4 W's that we talked about. And the overall goal with these is to help you identify some of those occupations and opportunities that align with all these items. And so you're not going to be able to find that perfect job. Hopefully you can, that has everything taken care of and you can check off all those boxes. But the goal is to be very intentional, that if you can understand these things about you and what makes you and what you value and what your skills are, you're going to be able to be very laser focused on trying to find those jobs and those career paths that make sense for you. So regardless of where you are in your career journey, transferable skills are extremely important to identify and understand. And so whether you're starting out that first job, you're looking for something different, you want that completely new job, transferable skills and your experience that you have is kind of those things that you're going to use to help you reach those career goals. No matter where that track or road takes you from your very first job to when you retire and move on, those things that you identify in terms of experience and those skills that you use throughout that career are yours. And we're going to talk about those and how to identify those and be very intentional about using those things. And so some of the things that we're going to achieve today is we're going to discuss the importance of self-awareness and career development. I'm going to help you understand what transferable skills really are. I'm going to help you identify those transferable skills if you haven't already. And I'm going to show you how understanding your skills can be helpful in your overall career journey. And then I'll also end the presentation today with some additional resources for intentional career discovery and development that you may find helpful. So those are our goals for today. And we'll just kind of dive right in if we don't have any questions. So we talk about the importance of self-awareness, and there's another thing that I like to use in the work that I do with individuals, and we've talked about it on the last webinar, is your Holland Codes and the occupational theme codes that are out there that have been developed over a long period of time and are used by various companies like Myers-Briggs with their strong interest inventory. And there's also some other resources at the end that we'll talk about as well. But you go through those 4 career W's, which we talked about. And, I like to start there with people. And so I'd suggest you just chart this out. You write the who. I would describe myself as, who are you? What I value is, why do I value in a job? And write those things out. I would enjoy spending my work time. What do I like to do? So I would like to work in which environments allows me to be most productive. So really focusing on those 4 questions and designing those out. And then the 5th thing that we're going to talk about again is the skills. So, I have an action item sheet that we'll send you at the end that we will talk about that you can have that you can use that will help you outline these things. But I really encourage you to spend some time to kind of answer those questions if you haven't before. The next thing that we like to use, just to kind of give you a little more context, is understanding these Holland Codes, or what I call RICIC codes. And these are based on occupational, theories that are out there. And they're basically our 6 categories. And these 6 categories fall into realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And these are the basis of what I use as the Myers-Briggs Strong Interest Inventory. And what these are done is through an assessment process, you can then go in and identify where do my current interests fall within these categories. And then once I know what those interest levels are in these 6 categories, I can then start to align them with some occupations that use those interests. And that's how we can use the Holland Codes along with your 4 career W's to be very intentional in developing that career path. And so without going into too much detail, you can check out the last 2 webinars that we've done that goes into more details with the categories. But just to give you kind of a brief overview, if you fall into that realistic category, you have a lot of interests that we describe that as the doers. So these are people that really like to get in there and do the physical work, and really like to be in there, being very active with the things they're doing. So things that fall along those lines are their interests. The investigative, we call the thinkers. That's how we describe them. The artistic are the creators. Social are the helpers. Enterprising, the persuaders. And conventional, the organizers. And so as you learn a little bit more about these occupational codes and so forth, you can then start to look at what are your career motivators and those interests that really keep you driving and get you up in the morning, going back to work, and keep you engaged in your career. And so as we talked about, realistic is, that career motivator is using physical skill, where investigative is analyzing, artistic is expressing creativity, social is helping others, enterprising is persuading and influencing, and conventional is organizing. So as you start to understand a little bit more about yourself and where you may fall into these 6 categories, which honestly have nothing to do with your ability to do a job, it's just all about your interest and what keeps you engaged, you can then start to think about, and we won't go through it now, but if you say, okay, I'm in that investigative category, what are some of the jobs that may allow me to use my interest of being able to just be a thinker, being able to analyze things? I love looking at questions and problems and using data and trying to figure those things out. And so we take it a step further, and we find out that as you learn about these, most people are a combination of maybe 2 or 3 of these, and sometimes just one of them, where they just have a really strong interest level that aligns with some of those things. And so once you understand those 6 categories, you can start to then look at what we call interest scales. And so if you fall into that investigative, there's probably some occupations out there in the fields of science and research and medical science and mathematics. Realistic, you can see them listed there: conventional, enterprising, social, and artistic. You could see some of the basic interests that fall into those categories. And so why this is important as you start to look kind of internally before you even start to look at skills is, what are the things that interest me the most? Do I like to be very hands-on and out there doing the work, and maybe I fall in that realistic category? Am I very enterprising, where I like to kind of be that leadership position and being able to persuade people and support people and help them reach their goals, their own personal and maybe professional goals? Am I more on the social side, where I have a lot of interest in, no matter what it is, I just love helping people and love teaching people possibly and helping them understand themselves so they can reach those goals and so forth. So you can kind of see some of the different, categories that fall into here and some of the different basic interests that we talk about. And so I'd encourage you, if you haven't done so before, you're not familiar with these, maybe get online, do some research. Definitely check out the last couple of webinars we've done. We talk a lot about these categories, but it's very important as you continue to understand yourself and understand those interests, as you start to tie in your skills, which we're going to talk about today, to help you really kind of intentionally design that career and take yourself on that journey. So I'll open up the chat here real quick. Are there any questions about that, or is there anything that anybody may have any comments on those? Are you familiar with those, or any other questions that you might have at this point? Not seeing any, so we will continue on. So that kind of just gives you a little bit, brings you up to speed very quickly on some of the things we've been talking about in the other webinars that we've done. And so now we're going to focus the remainder of our time on identifying your skills and how do you do that? And there's a couple different approaches you could do. So, but first we have to look at what are your transferable skills. And so you can look online and there's a lot of different definitions out there, but basically transferable skills are skills that you can use in every job, no matter what the title or the field. So these are things that whether you're maybe in a leadership position or you're working for this organization or organization A or B or whatever, there's still skills that you have that would transfer from one job or the other, regardless of what you're doing. And so employers seek out these transferable skills because they know that you'll most likely have the tools to help you go maybe beyond the job description that they're posting. So some people call these maybe soft skills or hard skills, like if it comes into, you know, your technology knowledge, or soft skills, maybe more of communication, you know, how do you interact with people and those kind of things. But the skills are transferable between jobs, and employers really seek out these things. And you'll find as we go through this, a lot of interviewing questions and things that you're doing that you'll be faced with as you look at these new jobs or that first job are going to be based on trying to identify your ability to, with some of these transferable skills that we'll talk about. And the best thing about it is transferable skills are yours to keep, and it's what makes you unique as an individual. So even though these skills are transferable across jobs, it's what makes you unique. And we're going to talk a little bit towards the end of the webinar about how do you really use these transferable skills and your other skills to promote yourself in a resume, to promote yourself in your cover letter, to really be able to talk about all the great things you're capable of as you get into that interview situation and so forth. So why is it important to identify transferable skills you possess as a candidate for a job or as you look for that next job? Well, there's a lot of different things. It sets you apart from others. It helps you identify potential jobs that may be aligned with your skills. It helps you identify potential next steps in your career based on those skills and your interests. And so those things are all super important as you're trying to identify these things as your skills. And it also allows you to continue to understand, identify you regarding your career and overall goals, excuse me. So those are things that are very important and why we're talking about some of these things today. So as you look at your transferable skills, I'm just gonna have some of the most common ones kind of popping up on the screen as we're talking here. But they go from a range of different things to how you build relationships and manage relationships, to teamwork, to how are you creative, how do you communicate, your ability to execute on tasks, active listening. We talked the last webinar about intentional communication. How do you go about analyzing things and doing reasoning based on those analytical skills, leading a project, critical thinking, adaptability, project management, and problem solving. So those are just a few. There's a lot more that may be out there. And if you have any other suggestions or maybe some other thoughts, you can put those in the chat. We could certainly talk about those. But these are some of the most common ones that are kind of out there, and we'll be kind of focusing on today as we go through here. So how do you go about identifying your transferable skills? There's a lot of different ways. You can sit there and just make a traditional list and rank them, you know. So sit there, if I'm sitting there going, what are my transferable skills? I could say, I feel like I'm very proficient in like Microsoft Office. So, you know, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, those kind of things. Those are things that I would think would be important to make sure people know about. So you can go through this list and talk about what are you good at doing? What do you do on a regular basis at your current job? What do you feel that you're good at? Why do you feel that you're good at these things? And what are some of the tangible results that that go along with those? We're going to talk about those tangible results here in just a few minutes. But that's one way to kind of just, if you want the quick and easy way to come up with some of your transferable skills or your skills, think about your current jobs, think about the things that you do in your personal life. what are you good at doing, and start making that list, and talking about and starting to make notes about, okay, I think I'm good at this and here's why. That's going to be very helpful as we get to the next part of what we're doing. Now, a process that I like to use, and it actually was developed by a colleague and strategic partner of mine out of Indianapolis, Indiana, is called success stories. And this is what I wanted to kind of spend time on working through with you today, to help you understand how you can use success stories in a variety of different ways, but how you can use that process to help you identify what your skills are. And so they can help you identify the skills, but it can also help you better align intentionally your skills and interests as you're developing that intentional career path. So we're going to go through that here in just a few steps, and we'll kind of talk about what that is. So the first step in your success stories, and this is always exciting for me to talk about with people, is I learned so much about clients and people that I'm working for or working with, is I have you just write down examples of 10 success stories that include things that you are passionate about and you excelled at, and basically things you like and were good at. So I have you spend some time going through that. And stories, the requirement is the stories must be both. However, it doesn't mean that you are an expert and perfect, but you had some positive ability toward it. So this wasn't like you're the absolute best person in the world doing these things, but you felt like you had some really positive ability towards it. You were passionate about it and you excelled at these things. And so while we're doing this to come up with some of your skills, you can also, as you're going through this, you'll find that it will help you answer maybe some of those 4 career W's as well, about who you are, what you value, the kind of environments you like to work in, and so forth. These stories can include things like volunteering, athletics, school projects, jobs, projects around the home, starting something new, something you've created, a personal goal, etc. So there's really no restrictions on this. It's whatever you're passionate about and feel like you excelled at are the 10 success stories that you want to start writing down. And you only need to write a sentence or 2 about each, describing the success you had and how it illustrated what you were passionate about and excelled at. So that's very important. As I'm working with clients, or you start to do this, you're only writing a few sentences, because the ideal situation here is that you're talking through these with somebody. So whether it be somebody like me, or a colleague or friend or trusted advisor you may have, sit down and go over and explain these success stories to that person. Because as you start to talk, it's going to help you identify some of the trends. You're going to be saying the same thing over and over, hopefully, as you're going through these success stories, because there's going to be some things that you're always doing, which we're going to get to. But it's also going to help that person that's listened to you. You want to ask them, say, as I'm telling these to you, pick up on some of the things that you hear as trends. And what are some of the skills and some of the things that you hear me talking about that are maybe, common across those 10 success stories? If we were to be in an in-person setting, which hopefully someday we will be here soon, back at the library doing these in person, we would go through this as a group of people that would like to share maybe 1 or 2 of their success stories. We would kind of go through that process. Because of the webinar, we can't really, physically do that today, unfortunately. But I'd have you, go through this process on your own. I'd be happy to follow up with you afterwards if it'd be helpful to have somebody to talk through with you. So the second step is in this. After you have success stories written out, begin to identify common skills that you use to achieve that success. So whether you're talking to somebody and they're helping you identify those, or as you're writing them out, start to think about, okay, I was successful here. What are some of the real skills I used to be successful in that, and why was I successful? As you chart out your skills, you'll begin to see some trends, hopefully, which will help you identify those skills that you use on a consistent basis to help you achieve that success. And so those identified skills can then be used in a variety of ways as you begin your career and continue your career, or start to make a change in your career, which we're going to go through here in just a few minutes. So really take some time to identify your success stories. I like to encourage people to even start from the youngest age you can maybe remember, and work your way up through present day. So you're getting some success stories from all different, times throughout your life, because you'll find that there's a lot of your transferable skills and those experiences are going to be evident from the very beginning, and you've just been building upon those as you get to this point in your career. So really spend some time. I think you'll really find it not only enjoyable, but it's going to be helpful as we go through the rest of the information on the webinar as well. So once you have those success stories, I usually encourage you to make a chart, and I only have 3 here. You're going to have 10, but I usually try to, have people identify your top 3, the 3 that you're most proud of, the 3 that you were most passionate about and you're most successful of in your mind. There's no right or wrong answers. And you're going to have a chart that you're going to be creating, and you're going to identify as you're going through those, some of those skills. You're going to list those skills just in any order that you've identified as you're thinking about these success stories down the left. And then you're going to go through each success story and you're going to put check marks next to them. Okay, success story 1, I really showed a high level of leadership. 2 and 3, I did the same thing, really showed a high level of leadership. Those are things I felt really good about. The teamwork, you know what, success story 1 and success story 3, they were more like just individual things. But, success story 2, I really had the opportunity to be involved in some great teamwork. And if somebody said, what's great teamwork look like? That's the example I'm going to give them. And you're going to go down through that and do that for all the different skills that you've identified. These are just some examples here that I've pulled out. And what this is going to do, it's going to allow you to total up for leadership the different success stories. So 3 out of 3 of your top 3 success stories, you really had opportunity to show some leadership that you felt really good about. And you can see some of the other ones here in your totals. And you're also going to, the reason I total it up and down as well is because you can see here with 7 different things out of your identified skills, and you could have 100 over there if you want, but I encourage you to kind of keep it to, a smaller list if you can. That success story in the middle is something you really want to keep track of as you start to write resumes, as you start to write cover letters, as you start to prepare for your interview questions, as you start to look at new jobs. Because the higher this number here, the more of your transferable skills you've identified and you use in that success story. So that's a key thing that we want to keep in mind as we're preparing for those interviews and so forth. Same thing over here. On the right-hand side, it's going to help you kind of prioritize what your top skills are and so forth. And so as you move on, the next step would be to kind of take those skills, and you've identified the total number of times you maybe used it. And I like to have you prioritize it. So what's your top transferable skill or top skill that you feel is the most developed, that you feel the strongest about? And you're going to put them top to bottom. So the higher they are on the list, the more developed, I'm going to call them, that you feel they are. And then you're going to spend some time and ask yourself, well, what made me successful in these categories? I feel like leadership, looking at my success stories, leadership's my top 1. So what are some things that I did to make me feel that way, and what caused me to be successful? And so I put some examples in here. So led a team of 15 individuals towards a common goal, collaborated with 3 different departments during the project, communication, had to develop and present a daily status update to upper management. I'm just pulling these out of the air. This has nothing to do with any jobs or anything like that, but you get the idea of, you want to be more specific now as to, here's my skills that I feel I'm very good at, what made me successful, and why do I feel that way? And so you're starting to make that list, and you could have 3 or 4 things, hopefully more, under each heading if you wanted to. You're almost making like an outline that's going to help you as you continue to go down this path of your interviews and so forth. So what this is going to help you do is, you now have started great big. You have your success stories that you can now talk about. You have your skills that you've used as part of those success stories that makes you unique in who you are. And now you're going to start having specifics about what made you successful and how you actually use these skills and why you feel that way. And you can hopefully see, as you're looking ahead, how this information can be super helpful as you're developing your resumes, getting ready for interviews and all those kind of stuff. So the process identifies important information for you to use in a variety of different ways, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. So after you've talked about what those makes you successful in those categories, I want you to make sure that you're being very specific. You're documenting any metrics that maybe were involved there. You develop your narrative, I'm calling it, around each one, and you align your skills with the job description you may be looking at, or you use those skills to help identify the potential jobs that you may be interested in pursuing if you're trying to look for that new job or that first job. And so these are very important points on this slide, because the more specific and the more time you take kind of developing out this part of the process, the more helpful it's going to be as you get into that interview stage, as you develop that resume and you're creating that cover letter and so forth. And so be specific. If there are metrics or key performance indicators or anything like that, or anything that you can say, here's a dollar figure tied to that, or here's how much I saved the company, or here's how much money I raised when I was in middle school and, ran this whatever, fundraiser campaign, whatever your success story might be specific and have any kind of numbers that are important that may be around that. When I talk about developing your narrative, this is why we have you talk through your success stories with somebody. You have to start becoming very comfortable about talking about yourself and talking about what's made you successful and why you've used these skills and why they're important to you and what you can take to the job and to the next level. And so the more you can start talking about these things, developing that narrative around there, the easier it's going to be as you're looking at those resume, cover letters, and interviews that we've been talking about. So start talking about it now. If you're like me, it's very difficult to talk about yourself, especially in the interview setting. You're always like, gosh, how can I think, what were some of those things that I did at that job? I wish I would have written those down. This is the part of that process to help you do those things. And we're going to talk now about how you can now transition this newfound knowledge and this information you just collected, and how you're going to use those in different aspects of your career journey. So I'll stop right there. We've had a few more people join the call, so welcome. And if there's any questions or anything that you have, feel free to put it in the chat there, any comments, and I'll be happy to answer those before we go on to how we can use your identified skills. All right. Doesn't look like there's any questions, so we'll move on. So, how are you going to use this newfound knowledge, right? So this is a lot of information you're collecting. So we're going to start at kind of the bottom, not the bottom, but the beginning of that train track image that I had at the beginning. And you're looking for that first job. So we have the Holland Codes. We have your 4 career W's. We've got your skills, your success stories. We've got your information about what made you successful and all those. How do we kind of formulate and put all that together and make it useful now that we've done all this great work to identify these things? So when you're looking for that first job, the Holland Codes and your interests are kind of the best place to start, so really diving into what are my personal interests and what jobs may be out there that will allow me to use those interests to help me be engaged. And whether you go through the full, formal process that I offer clients, or you're doing that research on your own, learning about those, whatever, outline your interests. What are you interested in doing, and start to make some correlations to the potential jobs that are out there. So you take that information and you add in your 4 career W's. So you have your interests, and now you're talking about, who am I? What do I value? What do I like to do? What environments am I most productive in? And so you're taking your interest, you're adding in that next level of your 4 career W's, and you're starting to paint a picture about what jobs I might find the most interesting and most engaging as I go in there. And those are the ones I'm going to go look through. And then you throw in your identified skills, and you add all 3 of those data points and that information. And hopefully what that's going to do, it's going to help you develop an intentional career discovery planning or action items or action plan. And so you have your interests, you have what kind of makes you tick with your values and environments and all that. You have your skills that you developed over time, whether it's your first job or whatever. You're putting all that information together and you're trying to do some really, analytical thinking about those things and say, okay, what jobs are out there that would allow me to do those things? I may not be able to check off all the tick boxes on all of these items, but, there's going to be some give and take. But, what's most important to me and what jobs are out there that might be in there. And so some ways you can do that is, using your Holland Codes and going through the 4 career W's is, I would just, when you start to describe who am I, what jobs might allow me to be who I am. So I can start to, ask myself those questions. What I value, what jobs might be out there that have the same shared values as me. I know that as a person, I'm very passionate about helping other people. And so what are some companies or jobs out there that will allow me to help other people at the level that I would feel most comfortable with? What jobs might provide me the opportunity to do what I love doing? Just having that question. If I could do anything in the world, what would it be? I love that question with people, all kinds of answers. But what are some of those real actual jobs out there that allow me to do some of the things that I really enjoy spending my time doing, whether it be on a personal setting or professional setting? And how do I continue to capitalize on some of those things? What jobs might provide me the best environment for me? If I know that I need to be in that collaborative workspace I love interacting with people, I may not want to look at jobs or companies that are very, individualized. So I think about, depending on the firm you may work for, but if I like to be working with a lot of people, I may not enjoy that CPA or an auditor type position where I'm focused on, I'm analyzing things and those kind of things. Where if I really like those things, I may not be comfortable in that very collaborative work environment and so forth. So being able to really understand what kind of work environment is most productive is super important as you're going through that. And what am I good at? What jobs allow me to use my skills? So we just did this whole success story things, and I know I'm great at computers. I'm great at communicating to people. I'm great at facilitating or leading things. What jobs are going to let me do those things? And so as I'm starting to look at job descriptions and I'm starting to look at job postings and I'm starting to pick out key words and terms and skills that I've identified, yep, they're there. And I actually highlight it and say, I went through this whole job description. There's only 2 skills I was able to highlight based on the things I'm really good at. That may not be the right job for me. Or, you know what? They're 2 skills, but they're 2 of my best. So absolutely, that's something I'm going to look into and I'm going to pursue a little bit further. So you're trying to take out some of the emotion of identifying that first job and putting some really hard, facts in place and some information about yourself to make sure that you're identifying that possible job. So what about those people that are wanting to make a career change? That's always interesting. So, I spent, almost 30 years with various organizations like Xerox and FedEx and a printing company out in New York City. And, some of those companies I was there for 3 or 4 years. FedEx, I was there for over 15, but I was always asking myself, am I still happy? Am I still enjoying what I'm doing? What's the next move for me and all those kind of things. And so making that career change from, say, your first job to your second job, or maybe it's your first job that you've been doing for 25 years and now you're forced, or something's come up where you've had to make a career change for whatever reason. You can still use a lot of this information to help you intentionally make that career change, as opposed to just jumping to whatever may be available. And so sometimes you just have to take that jump. I understand that. But if you could even spend an afternoon or a couple hours going through some of these things, it's going to at least help guide you in the right direction, give you some data. So making a career change, I always suggest people start with their skills. You've already been in a career. You've got some background and some history and some experience that you can talk about. Let's talk with those. Let's understand those skills. And then let's add in our 4 career W's and ask ourselves, well, why am I making this change? Am I still who I am when I started? What do I value? Has that changed different? Do I have different work environments I found that are more productive for me than maybe in the past that I had when I first started this job? And then you're going to throw in your interests that we've talked about. And so you have your skills, you have your career W's, and okay, here's some jobs that I've identified. Let's just kind of make sure to do that gut check of, hey, my interests are still involved in those, you know, or maybe my interests have changed. So those are how I would kind of approach that. We just had a question that says, how do I watch the recording? So much important information. I know I will forget. Thank you for this webinar. My pleasure. I'm glad you could be here. And this will be posted on the public library's YouTube page. It'll be available. You can watch it, you know, following this. So we'll send you that link out for sure. So making that career change, you're starting at a little bit different point. You're starting with your skills first. You're going into your W's and you're going into your interests. And hopefully that's going to help you with that intentional career planning. You're just approaching it a little bit different way, okay? And so as you go through that, you can go through your career W's again when you get to that point, but you're asking yourself a little bit different question. So before, you may ask who, you know, what jobs are maybe out there allow me to be who I am. You're now asking yourself, how have I grown professionally and personally? And am I different now? And how can I use that to find that next job or to make that career change? You're also say, have my professional and personal values remained the same, or have they changed since I started my career? And if so, if they've changed, then okay, what are those changes and how do I go about, you know, intentionally using those to make sure I'm aligned with the proper job that'll help me, you know, keep those values intact. Or if they remain the same, then great. You know, that's a little bit different conversation. Well, I want to make sure I'm maintaining those things because that's something that's very important to me. What about my job? Do I still enjoy? What about a job do I still enjoy, and what would I change? You know, this is something that I learned very late in my career that I wish I would have asked myself, you know, once or twice, probably once a year, is do I still enjoy what I'm doing? And what would I change about my job if I could? And so if you could say, yep, I still enjoy it, not much I can change. There's some stuff I wish was different, but you know what? It's not a deal breaker. I'm going to keep going what I'm doing. You know, but if you're asking yourself that question once a year and you're just saying, I'm not engaged anymore, or, you know, I really wish I could be doing some other things. That may be some time. You're not, of course, telling your employer that necessarily. I mean, you may, depending on that relationship, but, you know, you're having that conversation with yourself and you're spending some time to really reflect on, okay, what do I need to do next to intentionally design that career to make sure I'm staying engaged? Does my current environment still support me in being productive? This is a huge one. You know, there's always, they talk about kind of the honeymoon period as you start a new job where you're kind of getting your feet wet and getting things integrated and, hey, everything's great. You're the new employee. But as you start to get through there, you know, the real work kind of sets in and you're finding out some of the intricacies about the environment that maybe you didn't know through the interview process. And maybe those things are great. Hopefully they are, but maybe there's some things that you're like, boy, I just find that when I'm faced with this or this thing comes up in the environment or the culture that we're working in, it just shuts me down and I have a hard time overcoming that. And so maybe it's time that I start looking for a change or whatever. And then what am I good at? What newly developed skills do I have, and can I use those skills in a new position? One of the best things I ever did in my career, whether I was looking for a new job or not, or wanting to make a change, I still kept my resume updated, because what that did is once a year, it would allow me to go through and say, okay, what have I done since in the last year? What have I accomplished? What have I achieved? What new skills am I doing? What classes did I take? You may not put all that information on your resume, but you're going through that process to keep it fresh. So when the time comes, you have it right there and you're not going back spending, you know, a day trying to recap the last 5 years and what you've accomplished. So just a little tip there as you're going through there. And then you could obviously, like we said, tie in those personal interests or those Holland Codes just to make sure that, you know, okay, it's time for a change. This is what I'm going to pursue. You know what, I'm going to be able to use those things that I'm interested in as well. So just another way of kind of looking at things. So then the other thing that we're going to talk about and using your skills is your personal development action plan. There's a lot of times, a lot of clients I work with, you may, depending on where you are in your journey, you may be really happy with your job. You may be really happy with what's keeping you engaged and all those kind of things, the things you're doing, the impact you're having, but you want to grow personally, right? You're not looking to change jobs. You just want to grow personally in different areas. So then I have people kind of start with that 4 career W's, understanding, okay, what I am and my value, and helping you kind of identify some areas you may want to build upon there. How can you improve maybe the environment you're working in? How can I be a bigger contributor to the project I'm doing, whatever it is, to those value things. And then you're throwing in your identified skills and you're kind of going through those, and you're almost reprioritizing at this point in time. And you're sitting there going, okay, my leadership skills are still great. My teamwork, it's leveled out. How can I take that to, the next level? And what are some things I need to do as a person to build upon my ability to build a team and to encourage and motivate others? Communication's still great. I really wish I could be more creative when it comes to analyzing projects and thinking through things. So maybe there's some courses out there that I could take on problem solving or whatever it may be. So you're going through that process. You're just reversing the order in which you're looking at things. And then you're adding in your interest. And maybe at this point in time in your career, it's time you go and you do the full kind of Myers-Briggs personality assessment, strong interest inventory, because that gives you a lot of insight into your decision making, how you interact with other people, your tolerance for risk, those kind of things. And so maybe there's some things around your interests and your personality and stuff like that that you could do to kind of take you to that next level. And so you're kind of looking at all 3 of these again, but in a different lens, and you're developing your career development action plan. And at this point in time, you could certainly do that on your own. I find it very beneficial, not just because that's what I do, but because it's very beneficial to talk through with a trusted advisor or somebody as you're getting to that point. And specifically your supervisor, if you're happy with your job, you're high performing, things are going great, this is the conversation you can then arm yourself with as you're going in to talk to your supervisor and saying, this is what I'm about. This is what I value. This is the environment I'm working in. These are the skills. These are the things I feel like I could improve upon. Can we talk about what that action plan looks like and work together on achieving that? So real quick, I know that, you talk about SMART goals. And so as you're developing your action plan, I go through, if you have never seen this before, there's a lot of information on the web about your SMART goals. And so being specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound. So specific is, what do you want to accomplish? Who needs to be included? When do you want to do this? Why is this a goal? So being very specific when you say, I need to improve here, this is how I'm going to do that. You want it to be measurable. You want to quantify the results as best you can. So how can you measure your progress? How do you know when you have met your goal? So if you're going to take a class that maybe is 6 weeks long, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to every single class. There's 6 classes. I'm actually, tracking that I went to every one of them. And at the end, I'm going to get a certificate saying that I've achieved this or whatever it may be. So being able to outline those. Actionable, start each goal with an action verb. Begin, complete, start, stop, quit. That's very key as you're coming up with some of these action plans and you're coming up with these goals. Is it relevant? Why am I setting this goal now? Is it aligned with my overall career goals? Is it aligned with my 4 career W's? Is it even aligned with my interests? This is a goal I've identified, but can I tie it back to what's important to me? Or is it kind of what I call the shiny, object syndrome? Is this something I want to go do? But I'm going to spend time, money, and energy doing these things, but does it really help me along that career path or that career journey that we've been talking about? If it does, great. If it doesn't, maybe I need to tweak it a little bit to make sure that it's aligned and I'm being very intentional about it. Time bound. What's the time frame for this goal, and is that realistic? Begin date, target end date, actual completion date, and so forth. So just a little bit of a kind of an overview of how you identify SMART goals as you're coming up with that action plan. The other thing, and I know we only have about 10 minutes here, and we'll kind of open up for questions, but the other thing you can use these skills for is resume and interview preparation, and almost developing, as you're going through these things, your personal impact statement. And I call it a personal impact statement because a lot of times you'll see this kind of at the top of your resume, what you're all about and what makes you you. And so you can use this information we're talking about today to develop your resume, interview questions, potential job identification. And so, here's an example of a personal impact statement that you can see as you're going through there. There's different, let me go back. There's different key terms in here that are skills that are identified, right? Leadership experience, visionary leader, ability to motivate, develop talent, communication, execution, and trust, consistently exceed corporate goals and objectives. So as you're identifying these skills, you're identifying these career W's, you're formulating some of these things that we call your personal impact statement, or your, what makes you you, and how your elevator speech almost, of how in a few sentences you can get across what you're all about and what you're bringing to the table in terms of those. And it also provides you very specific content for your resume and your cover letter. You're going to see as you're going through these, you're going to be pull out using your success stories, the specifics that you have in there, being able to articulate that and outline that in your resume. So it's all kind of cohesive and following the same path. As you look through interview questions, it's going to help you identify scenarios you can review during your interview. So your success stories, you're going to use that information. And as questions come up, you'd be surprised at how many times it's going to be easy for you to go back and tie it to a success story. You'll think in your head, that was success story number 4. Let me tell you about that. You're not going to tell them it's success story number 4, but you're going to say, hey, it's going to trigger you, and you're going to be able to go through and talk about what made you successful in that area. It's going to help you develop questions for the interviewer. So think about if you've been in that interview situation and that always comes to the end, they say, do you have any questions for me? And you're like, oh gosh, I didn't think about that. So it's going to help you as you're looking at your 4 career W's. You can ask questions about, tell me a little about the work environment I'm going to be working in. Tell me a little bit about, what's a typical day look like? And in your mind, you can be checking off that says, okay, I know this is the kind of work environment I'm going to be the most productive in, engaging in. Does that meet, what they're saying to me? And I always tell people that, as you're going to that interview is just as much for you as it is for that person. You're interviewing them to make sure it's the right fit for you. If you're really intentionally approaching this, just like they're interviewing you to make sure you're the right fit for them. And you're also ensuring that your 4 career W's are met and identified to calibrate that if it is the right fit for you. Those are some ways you can kind of use these things to help in the interview setting. And then potential job identification. We talked about this a little bit, but you're using all this information and you're identifying, is the job I'm looking at aligned with my personal interests? Are my 4 career W's evident? Are my skills going to be used? Are those aligned? Are my skills even included in the job description? And what transferable skills do you already possess that you can use in that job? So as you're starting to look at jobs, you're being very intentional about where you're going next and what jobs you're going to pursue. You're kind of going through these mental checklists and all this work that you've done to kind of check those boxes, because I guarantee if you're kind of going through this process and you're identifying those jobs, they're going to be very specific. They're going to be jobs that you're going to be very well qualified for because you've done all this kind of analyzing of it. And it's going to help you. You're going to be very comfortable as you get to those interviewing stages to talk about these things, because that job's going to be aligned with your skills. It's going to be aligned with what you're capable of doing. It's going to be aligned with the environments you like, the values you have, and all those kind of things. Some additional resources, and I'll open up for some questions. We can send this to you afterwards. I have a career awareness worksheet that you could do, but you can create your own too. Develop your career awareness worksheet that you can use to track your 4 career W's, your skills, and your action plans. You know, I've had people, they laminate it even after they write out their 4 career W's. They put that up so they keep it, you know, evident and very, you know, forefront as they're doing their career search. You're identifying your top skills. You're writing out some occupations that you want to pursue that use those skills, and you're writing out those SMART goals and those next steps. And the key part is you're holding yourself accountable to the process and the journey. An action plan is only as good as your ability to execute on it, right? And so you don't want to do all this work and then leave it there and not do anything with it. So I'll comment, yes, please. We'll definitely get you this worksheet out after the conference call or the webinar and get that. Another resource you have is what we call ONET online, and the ONET program is the nation's primary source of occupational information. Central to the project is a database that contains thousands of occupations covering the entire U.S. economy. And you can search jobs by Holland Codes, by interest, by skills, and a variety of other filters. And so you can go to ONET right now. It's free of charge. And you can go out there and start searching any job you ever wanted to look at that's in this database. Some jobs have things like, you know, as you can see on the screen, the tasks that are involved with those. It'll have your skills, abilities, maybe some education you might need. Some of it even has salary information if you're interested, not all of it. But really look at on the homepage, it says advanced search, and you can go in and say, okay, I'm going to search by skills. And they have skills listed there. You click on it and it'll give you all the jobs that have some of those skills involved in it and so forth. So really great resource. I always encourage people to go check it out because there's so much information in there. But if you're doing this work and being intentional about it, it helps you kind of streamline how you approach ONET, and you can do some more research in there as well. So a great resource that you can also use. And then the last resource, I'd love to offer this up to everybody that's registered today. I'd be happy to schedule a free kind of 30-minute career coaching call with you to kind of talk about any of the questions you may have or anything I can help you with as you go through this process and thinking about these things. I'd be more than happy to do that. And honestly, an opportunity to meet you and kind of build the network and continue to collaborate on things like careers and you know, whatever I can do to kind of help support you in that journey. Be happy to do that. A link to my calendar is there. Just you click on it, you schedule a call, and we'll do it via Zoom or however you want to do it. Be happy to talk with you and kind of understand a little bit about where you are in your journey, and if there's anything we can, you know, I can kind of help to help move you along that journey or support you in that journey to achieve that. So another one, do you have a survey? You're excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that feedback. I don't currently have a survey. I'm not sure if Jordan does from the Champaign Library. But I really appreciate that feedback. I wish I did have a survey. I would send it to you.
We do have a survey here at the library, so I will send that out as well in the email after this.
I thought you did, but I wasn't sure. I want to speak for you. So, and then I'll just open up for questions. We got a few minutes left. I kind of took a little longer than I was expecting to, but if you have any questions through the chat or you want to, you know, unmute, we can do that. And all my contact information is here along with my website as well. So feel free to get in touch with me. Be happy to continue the conversation.
So first off, thank you, Kevin. That was great. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat, or you could raise your hand and we could unmute you and you could speak. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Yep. If you didn't quite catch Kevin's contact information, if you email me, I can get you connected with him as well. And I'll be sure to send out the survey link in the follow-up email.
That'd be great.
While we wait for some questions, I will go ahead. Here's my contact information. You can give us we could meet with you one-on-one through Zoom. You can come into the library, of course. We can focus on introductions. We don't have to jump into details right away, but we can discuss your resume, your cover letter. We've also been hosting practice interviews for a lot of people recently, so please feel free to reach out. And our next career, well, oh, no questions, Kevin. Thank you. Peace, happiness, and good health to you. Well, thank you. Thank you for attending.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Our next career webinar will be Wednesday, June 9th at 2 p.m., which will be Resume Reboot. We will host Ashley Watkins, who is a nationally certified resume writer. Ashley will join us to discuss some key areas to help you reboot your resume, of course. It also includes creating, a keyword-rich resume and some overall strategies to showcase your value so you hopefully can land that interview. And then we hope you'll consider attending more webinars. I've listed the remaining webinars for June for career webinars, but we have a lot more coming up. And we have a lot more related to our business series, our technology series, our crafty adults, and our writers workshops. So please visit champaign.org/events for more information. And once again, if you want to contact us, here's our contact information. You can email us at librarian@champaign.org. You could chat with us just by visiting the homepage of our website, and we are still offering those book a librarian appointments. There I am. All right. Well, I don't see any further questions from anyone. Anything else to add, Kevin?
Nope. Just wanted to thank everybody for attending today, and best of luck with your career journey. I hope to run into you and talk with you in the future.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I hope everyone enjoys their afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.